right? So the Prophet of Allah is saying, none of these are objectives of Ramadan. So what is the objective? The objective is لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so you may become God-fearing. Now let me give you the simple definition of that. The simple definition of this, and when I was studying, one of my teachers, he gave a very, very easy to understand, examples. And first he gave the definition, and then he gave an easy to understand example. Or not example, he gave us a task, that this is what you should do, and then inshallah you will be achieving the purpose of Ramadan. Now, the simple definition of taqwa, it was actually given to us by one of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, Ubay ibn Ka'b radiallahu ta'ala anhu. A companion of the Prophet of Allah, Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he came to Sayyidina Ubay ibn Ka'b, who was another companion of the Prophet of Allah ﷺ, and he asked him a question. He said, "O Ubay ibn Ka'b, what is taqwa?" This is the precise question. What is taqwa? What does it mean to fear God? What does that mean? And Sayyidina Ubay ibn Ka'b responded to him by giving him an example. Well, he asked him a question. He said, have you ever walked a path that is very narrow? Like, a narrow path. Like, you see these narrow alleys that are going, right and left, and, you gotta keep making these turns. Like, narrow alleys. Have you ever walked a path that is very narrow? And on both sides of that path, there are bushes. And all of the bushes on both sides, like, the branches of the bushes are falling on one side and the other. And it's a narrow path, remember, it's very narrow. So, you gotta really just fit in, and there's bushes on both sides, and the branches of the bushes are falling on both sides, And he said that those branches have thorns on them, thorns. That if you touch this side, it can go right into you, those thorns, right? Yeah, the thorns. So he said, have you ever walked such a path? Now, try to picture this in your mind for a second. It is a narrow path, and there's bushes on both sides of that path, and there are thorns hanging or coming out of the branches of those bushes on both sides. So Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar, he said, yeah, I've walked such a path before. So Ubay ibn Ka'b asked him, how did you walk such a path? And he said, I was very, very careful to make sure that my clothes or my body doesn't get caught up on the thorns on the right or the left of me. So I was very careful and carefully, I walked, to make sure that I don't get hurt on this side, I don't get hurt on that side, my clothes won't get caught up on this side or the other side, and then very carefully, I made it through, to the end. He said that is exactly the definition of taqwa, that you walk through this life that Allah has given you carefully, that you do not violate any of His commands. Very, very carefully, that you don't fall into haram here, or you don't fall into haram over there. So very carefully, you walk through the life that Allah has given you. Now, here is what my